What's going on, guys? E449 here, and I want to talk about the future of Resident Evil. Now, with the success of Resident Evil 7, which was a hard reset for the series, um, Resident Evil 7 have given me hope for the series, and the big reason why was because they decided to listen to the fans and go back to its survival horror roots. Now, I remember when Resident Evil 7 was revealed, and the reveal video came under so much scrutiny, and I've read through the comments, and one of the comments was, it's not a Resident Evil 7 game. Well, it's not a Resident Evil game because it does not have zombies. Last I checked, Resident Evil was a survival horror game. Now, that doesn't mean it has to have zombies in it. Resident Evil is a survival horror game. Now, zombies is part of the element of the series, but it does not necessarily mean it has to be zombies. Um, I feel as though that people lost focus on that and wanted to kind of treat it as if I were to treat Resident Evil 5 and 6. Now the big reason as to why I did not like Resident Evil 5 and 6 is because they were hardcore action. Hardcore action, very little survival horror. Now, Resident Evil 4 was the beginning of this. But I'm not going to trash Resident Evil 4 because Resident Evil 4 was a good game. But it began the entire adding of the too much action, very little survival horror genre. Now, this game was very successful. It released on multiple platforms, and it's been remastered, and so that game was very successful. But Resident Evil 5 and 6, too much action. Now the games are good when you want to do co-op. Yeah, that's good and fine if you're into hardcore action and very little survival horror. Yeah, this game may be for you, but for me, it's not cutting it. It's not. And Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City was a huge disappointment. Now, I should have known that it was going to be a straight up action game. I should have known that. And I remembered when I purchased the game on launch day, and after playing through it, I was just I had no words as to why, but I understand why Capcom wanted to take this series more into the action genre, and the reason for that was because they were aiming at the Call of Duty fan base, and at the time the Call of Duty fan base was untouchable. This was while MW2 was out, while Black Ops was out, while Black Ops 2 was out. Like, they were not touching that fan base. So once they found out that they couldn't touch that fan base, but was neglecting the hardcore fan base since the very first Resident Evil, they decided that they were going to finally listen to us. And I'm glad that they have listened to us, because Resident Evil has so much hope. It still have a lot of life, and I think that when they release another Resident Evil game, I think the next one that they should release is a remake of Resident Evil 2. The same way they've remade the first Resident Evil, I hope that they stick with that engine and remake Resident Evil 2. And it would be good. It would be a very good move. The reason is because the remake of the first Resident Evil was It was good. It was very good. And it sold very well on the current gen consoles. Um, I hope that with the next upcoming Resident Evil, possibly 8. I know that that the Resident Evil 2 remake is in the works, but I'm kind of hoping with when they do decide to make Resident Evil 8, I hope that it picks up with the main character from 7, which is Ethan. I hope they pick up from that and kind of add some people from Resident Evil, possibly 5. Well, hoping that they would add some characters from Resident Evil 5, or maybe some characters from Resident Evil 6. Not too many, but just enough to where they could still tie into the timeline for the entire franchise. I want to know, what do you think about the Resident Evil franchise as a whole? Um, what are your likes? What are your dislikes about it? Do you think that the timeline for Resident Evil could be improved, or are they okay with continuing the timeline? Because I'm very interested in wanting to see and wanting to know what you think about the franchise or about the timeline as a whole. Um, it should be interesting. So, with that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you.